Let's start with some political stories in the country. A group known as the Northern Young Professionals for Tinubu and Chatham has slammed the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Yakubu Dogara, and members of his forum for endorsing the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar. The group said Dogara and his forum are on a self-serving mission, urging Nigerians to be wary of ethnic and religious leaders bent on dividing the country with their comments. The Dogara-led Christian leaders had last week adopted Atiku as their candidate for the 2023 presidential election.
The Muslim ticket of the APC presidential candidate and his running mate, distinguished Senator Kassim Shettima, one would have thought with the capacity of Dogara and his co-hosts, they ought to have gone beyond religious sentiments, but rather the capacity of candidates toward the build-up to the 2023 elections.
We're thinking if he emerged, he is going to pick either Babachir or Dogara to be his own VP. Unfortunately, based on the calculation, based on the hard work, based on the track records, as you feel the only person that can match him to take Nigeria to the promised land is Senator Shettima. And the choice of Senator Shettima, we are all happy about it. We will support it. And we are calling on all Nigerians, Christians and Muslims, we should do the right thing.
The presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, has expressed concerns over the rising number of unemployed youths in the northeast region of Nigeria. Obi raised this concern at a meeting with some northeast stakeholders in Abuja. The former Anambra State governor described those developments as the biggest contributing factor to insecurity in the region, as thousands of youths wake up daily without food or shelter. According to him, the Northeast has the potential to feed the country and produce cash crops for export with enormous amount of land in that region. He pledged that his administration will bring that to reality if he wins the presidential election in 2023. And now let's take a short break, and when we return, it will be time to dissect the speech of presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Bola Tinubu, at the Chatham House in London with the former Commissioner for Information and Orientation in Edo State, Kassim Afegbua. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching Politics Tonight, digging beyond the headlines. Now to our interview with the guest of the day. I am now joined by the former Commissioner for Information and Orientation in Edo State, Kassim Afegbua, who was a spokesperson to the former military president of Nigeria, General Ibrahim Babangida. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. APC presidential candidate Tinubu continues his engagement with strategic groups in Nigeria at town hall meetings. And now he has traveled to the United Kingdom to share his campaign plans at the Chatham House. How will you describe this outing?
Well, thank you very much. I have said before that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's campaign has been most strategic. He has shown, some kind of new initiatives in handling campaigns, starting from Nigeria, going through the town hall meetings in different states of Nigeria and engaging, specific segments of the Nigerian population. Now taking the campaign to the global arena with the Chatham House discussion. I watched him from the beginning to the end. I watched the questions and the team player spirit that he exhibited. And I want to commend him for such a very cerebral, a very fecund delivery. When he was giving the introductory remarks, I saw, the stature of a president addressing a global audience. After the campaign and the outing, don't forget that PDP had a campaign in Lagos that was scanty, that was empty. So rather than allow themselves to be cocooned into the arena of criticism, they started raising dust over Afegbua Tinubu's approach for delegating some questions to some of his lieutenants, to speak to. And so I was beginning to wonder, say, what kind of distraction is this? They're just trying to distract from the kernel of his presentation. But essentially, a president must be a team player in contemporary leadership discourse. A president presides over other lieutenants and take decisions having, analyzed and dissected opinions of his lieutenants. So for Bola Ahmed Tinubu, when he was governor of Lagos State, we all knew that this was his approach. He was a team player. He made sure that everybody got involved so that it becomes a matter of collective responsibility and not just about his own individualism. And so when I hear people, I see people, of course, expectedly, PDP will make all the noise they will make. But I want to commend Afegbua Tinubu. I also watch him on the Focus on Africa TV program on BBC. I think the candidate of the APC is doing great. I want to commend him.
Now that you went there, you call them lieutenants, but some Nigerians call them proxies, and they say these are not the people asking for our votes. We're concerned that this is just electionary campaign, and you're already delegating questions to your team members. How are we sure that you will be accountable to us when we elect you as president?
I do hope people understand that a president alone cannot do the job. A president and a leader of a country is as good as the quality of minds that he has around him to advise him, to discharge responsibilities, to take decisions, to interrogate issues, and in the final analysis come up with initiatives and utility-driven decisions that can help to confront challenges facing him as a leader and the country at large. Don't forget that as a president, he's going to appoint lieutenants, he's going to appoint ministers, he's going to appoint persons into different positions of government, he's going to have advisors, he's going to have political advisors, economic advisors, and all of that. So there is the need for some persons to buy into his aspiration, use platforms such as this to even test, their capacity and their knowledge of the real issues. So Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the one who is the candidate asking for votes. Nigerians know him. He's not a newcomer. He's a formidable political player since 1999. He was an activist, whether you like it or not. He was in the forefront for the fight to birth this democracy. As a pro-democracy activist both in Nigeria and outside the country when he went on exile, he contributed immensely to what we are benefiting today. But for democracy and a matter of choices and a matter of the more the merrier, Tinubu will have been assisted to just become the president without anybody competing with him. That's just the truth, because he has invested in democracy more than any of the present contestants in APC and in PDP and Labour Party. So for me, his leadership style is what you need, what you desire in these contemporary times, to be able to rally around solid minds that will help you to deliver the goods. The function of a president is to preside over the country. That's why they call president, is to preside over the country. But in presiding over the country, he is not going to be at every point to take decisions. So he's going to appoint ministers and lieutenants as contained in the Constitution of Nigeria. And such appointment will have to be based on their knowledge of the issues. And so watching and listening to those persons in London at the Chatham House discourse, I felt so excited. You don't have to, he answered 4 questions out of the questions that we're asking, and he was very cerebral in his delivery. I watched him with Focus on Africa on BBC. He was cerebral. Even his choice of syntax, his articulation of the English language was very profound. So when I see people trying to trivialize the whole discourse and all of that, I get so, I'm just wondering what could have been the motivation. But of course, PDP publicists who naturally wouldn't want people to see the lapses in their rally in Lagos, almost an empty stadium that they couldn't believe themselves. So they were now blaming Korea and Brazil match as the cause of the scanty stadium. But for God's sake, I think Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has shown class, distinction, fecundity, and cerebral delivery at the Chatham House. I really commend him.
All right, so your presidential candidate spoke about his age and certificates at the Chatham House, and he made it clear that his records are consistent. But then, what impact do you think this will have on his acceptance?
Talking about certificates and the age, for me at this point, I am looking at Tinubu as a man who has fulfilled the requirements of the Constitution of Nigeria and the relevant provisions, who has been cleared by INEC as fit and proper to contest for this election. I'm looking at the experience he's bringing to bear. I am not going to detain myself with talking about age. If somebody wants to assume the role of his mother or father, let the person come out and give us a contrary view, because the man has since submitted documents to INEC in line with the provisions of the Electoral Act and by extension the Constitution of the country. If you now want to assume the position of his mother and father and you have issues with his age, please, you can go and tell us another one. But for me, if a man has attained certificate from a university in Chicago, and you are telling me he's not qualified to run an election, then I will say, go back to the Constitution and see what the provision says. In fact, even in the Constitution, it is stated that if in the opinion of INEC, you can read and write that you are qualified to contest any position. So I'm not going to detain myself with that. I'm looking at the bigger picture. The bigger picture of a Tinubu presidency who is able to rally around people, who will be a team player, who will be able to drive elite consensus that is missing now, to be able to agree on certain unassailable issues and take decisions that will have far-reaching impact on the health and the well-being of the country. We cannot continue to dwell on inanities and bestialities and think that is what is going to move us forward. I'm seeing a Tinubu presidency that will tap into brains, intellect, and resourcefulness of young, potentially young Nigerians who have the technical know-how to be able to respond to the challenges of contemporary governance in this country. And so, for me, amongst all the 3 of them contesting, before I took a decision, I did a critical analysis. And my analysis, supports a Tinubu presidency, and that's why you see me supporting. I'm not a member of APC, but I'm a supporter, keen supporter of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
All right, so let's quickly touch on some of the key issues he addressed at that event. He has promised to tackle the security situation heads on if he gets elected. So do you think he has this magic wand for that if elected president of Nigeria next year?
Well, let me tell you something about governance. And for a president, you must, speak in a manner that resonates hope for the hopeless Nigerians. Where you are able to articulate your issues, you must put into consideration what the country will be like, what it should be, and how it should be. And in doing that, you tap into the sensibilities of Nigerians by assuring them that your government will take on issues of insecurity, unemployment, job creation, and even foreign policy, amongst other issues, including economy. Tinubu may not possess the magic wand that will just take off the insecurity off the table, but he's a man who understands the intricacies of Nigerian geopolitical formations, and so he will be able to speak to geopolitical challenges, as well as getting the right people and plugging them to be able to discharge responsibilities with respect to nipping the insecurity in the bud. We presently have a system that is working to some extent. I must commend this government. I'm not cheap in commendation because I'm one of the strong critics of the Buhari government. But in the last 2-3 months, I can tell you, given the kind of privileged information that I have, and given the fact that I understand some of the dynamics across the country, that there has been a renewed onslaught against banditry, Boko Haram insurgents, and what have you. So a Tinubu presidency, and this is where I commend him, when he said he's not going to abandon President Buhari, he will take and deepen what the government is doing positively now, deepen them, just the same way that President Buhari was able to deepen some of the developmental initiatives of the previous government of Jonathan. The railway, for example, President Buhari didn't stop it, he commenced it, he continued. Even the airport's renovation and all that, he continued from where the PDP of Jonathan stopped. That's his continuity in governance. And so, for a Tinubu, for example, he will sit down on the round table, carry out an assessment, critical assessment, get the right people on board, and confront this thing. One thing I can tell you about Tinubu is that he has a strong political will. He's very courageous, he's very bold, and he's very strategic in taking decisions. And I know that if he was able to resolve the insecurity situation in Lagos when he presided over Lagos in 8 years to an admirable level, there's nothing that will stop him from interrogating the insecurity in the country and taking decisions that will have far-reaching impact on the well-being of the country. All
right. He also emphasized Nigeria's role in Africa as a big brother and a beacon of hope to the continent. But there are some analysts who feel Nigeria should focus on itself first.
That Nigeria should do what?
That Nigeria should focus on itself first.
Well, if I get you, you are talking about the place of Nigeria in contemporary African discourse. What Nigeria is, what should be the role of Nigeria, right? But the point, the Nigeria foreign policy is Afrocentric. That one is understandable. But again, you need to also tap into new areas based on what is happening across the globe. The Russia-Ukraine crisis is having its own telling impact on every country's foreign policy. It's giving us energy crisis. It's giving us a lot of migration issues. People are migrating, people are coming to the country, people are going out and all of that. As a government, and understanding the way Tinubu's mind works, I know that his stature will be a good selling point for us to rally around elite consensus on issues of Nigeria and also the Africa continent. Don't forget that even before now, he has played some very solid roles in the West African sub-region, elections in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, and in Ghana. He has always gotten himself involved. So he has built some tentacles that you cannot ignore. So in situating Nigeria under his government, you can be sure that Tinubu will appoint the right quality minds to manage our foreign policy portfolio. And the quality minds that will also understand the issues, the place of Nigeria in Africa, and even the place of Nigeria in the global arena. Listening to him today in the Focus on Africa discourse, he was talking about the West why Americans have not been able to be selling arms to us in a manner that will encourage us as a country to confront insecurity and what have you. I know that when he becomes president, it's one area that is going to look Americans in the face and tell them, are you happy with what is happening back home in Nigeria? If you are not happy, then open your doors to us so that we can get the right ammunition, the right technology that we can use to buffet our intervention in solving insecurity problems.
All right, so there are insinuations that London is planning to impose Tinubu on Nigeria. I want to get your reaction to that.
On what?
There are insinuations that London, as a result of the events at the Chatham House, there are insinuations that London is planning to impose Tinubu on Nigerians.
London is trying to take Tinubu on what?
London is trying to impose a Tinubu on Nigerians.
Well, I think the line is very faint. You are talking about London trying to take Tinubu on.
Can you hear me very well now?
I still can't get your question clearly.
All right.
Okay,
I said there are insinuations.
Let me try.
Kindly hold on. I said there are insinuations that London is planning to impose a Tinubu on Nigerians. I want you to react to that.
London is trying to, there's a word that is missing there that I can't understand.
London is trying to impose a Tinubu on Nigerians.
Oh! There is nothing that the opposition will not say. There is nothing they won't talk when it comes to Tinubu. But for God's sake, Nigerians know Tinubu more than London. Nigerians will file out on February 25th to vote massively for Tinubu. Don't forget that he's a man who has been around political circle in this country. It shouldn't be a matter of London imposing him on us. No. Tinubu, before I started supporting him, I interrogated his health status, and I was pleased with what he told me, and I believed him, because I'm not his medical doctor, I'm not his personal physician, but he was able to tell me how fit he has been, and I used his kneecap replacement surgery to actually confirm what he told me, because within 4 months, he started walking without walking stick. There were people who did kneecap replacement surgery before him and are still using walking stick to walk. So for such a man at his age who did a kneecap replacement and is able to walk very well within 4 months, that means there's nothing to bother about. And I've also been witness to several hours around him where he wakes up around 11 o'clock to start his day, and at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., he's still on his feet, attending to people, holding meetings and all of that. It got to a point that even some of his aides and lieutenants had to prevail on him to take a rest. But where will he take the rest? When he went to London to take a rest, they said, oh, he was sick, he was this, he was that. They were just making insinuations. But can I tell you something? Once you see a mango tree that has a lot of fruits, ripe and unripe, you see people throwing stones and throwing sticks just to pluck. If you see a barren mango tree, you will not see anybody underneath it. So, for a Tinubu, I understand that people must throw arrows, they must throw sticks, they must throw stones, they must conjure all manners of insinuations, all manners of hypocritical analysis, all manners of theories. But all I know is that I have interrogated the man, I can speak to his health status, and I am convinced that he has the gravitas, the gusto, the magisterial conduct that we need, to make him president and to fit in well as president that will be succeeding President Muhammadu Buhari. So
right,
for me, a man who is a team player is best suited for this country as at present. A man who can dialogue is best suited for this country.
Right.
A man who can engage
just before I let you go, we're running out of time.
To arrive at decision.
We're running out of time, so let me ask you, how well do you think his outing at the Chatham House will convince Nigerians to give him their mandate in 2023?
You are talking about the Chatham House outing?
Yes. How well do you think that event at the Chatham House will convince Nigerians to give him their mandate in 2023?
Yes, you see, you need such platforms at the Chatham House to strategically position the country and make the world see us from other perspectives. I was very excited to see the quality of persons that accompanied him for that trip. I actually made preparation to accompany them also, but I was having some engagement in Lagos with the media, so I couldn't go. But watching what I saw and the way and manner he responded to questions and all of that, I think I'm eager, waiting for May 29, 2023, when Tinubu will take in office and he will be giving out the first directives and taking the first decisions that will be able to put Nigeria in a stronger pedestal.
All right.
Essentially, his capacity to recruit solid minds to preside over portfolios and all that is one thing that is going for him. And that is why you see across the country, he has empowered quite a lot of people. He has continued to sustain his relationship with a network of friends that will help to put pay to all manners of protestations, agitations, and cries of marginalization here and there. So a Tinubu presidency is a surest bet for Nigeria in these contemporary times.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kassim Afegbua, for joining us on Politics Tonight as we dissect your presidential candidate's speech, Bola Tinubu, at Chatham House. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. It's a wonderful
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Just to also remind you that I wasn't a former spokesman to IBB. I am still spokesman to former President Babangida.
All right. Noted. Noted. Thank you very much. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight, but the conversation continues from here. Get in touch with us on Twitter at TVCNewsNG and at Olajumoke using the hashtag Politics Tonight. We are also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Join us for the repeat episode at midnight and tomorrow for another edition of Politics Tonight, digging beyond the headlines. I am Olajumoke. Goodbye.
At TVC News, wherever the big news story is happening, we're geared up to break it. TVC News, first with breaking news.
The debate to migrate to cleaner fuels has been raging for decades, particularly since the effect of greenhouse gases started impacting our lives in devastating ways. But like addicts, we are finding it difficult to wean ourselves from fossil fuels. There are those in the minority who flatly deny that the use of fossil fuels has an adverse effect on our lives. For those who admit the alternatives that have been found are inadequate to serve the soft lives to which we are all accustomed. What to do? Continue debating and jojoing. And so we did in Nigeria recently, when Nigeria's plan to attain cleaner ocean and greener shipping received a boost as global maritime experts discussed viable strategies towards decarbonization. That's the main thrust of our program today. We'll also bring you the usual tidbits. Seasoned greetings to you, our esteemed partners in progress. My name is Rekia Zikru Yagoyaju. I welcome you to the program. Stay with us.
Nigerian Shippers Council day to serve you well. No matter the problem, we go solve them for you.
Yes, so the Nigerian Shippers Council they feel in a parole now for every level. And as soon as goods they move from port A, go enter port B with a measure within on a need. For the Nigerian Shippers Council, we don't sharp proper to fit hear you wella, work with you wella, and help you fit serve your customers them better, no matter where them day. As we country port economic regulator, the Nigerian Shippers Council get every now to fit make government consider the problem where shippers them they face. Visit we office for number 4 or to buy your daily show your daily. Papa, email us for nsc@shipperscouncil.gov.ng. We website now www.shipperscouncil.gov.ng.
For you, we dey gidigba,
Nigerian Shippers Council with the meeting now for the port of Nane.
Glad to have you join us on The Shipper, Nigeria's foremost maritime television program. The Secretary General of the International Maritime Organization, IMO, Mr. Kitak Lim, recently declared support for Nigeria's drive to attain zero emissions in the maritime sector for safer environments. He made this pledge at Nigeria's International Maritime Summit, which took place in Lagos.